I want to share with the Olam a shir that I heard, I believe it was in 1998, Sukkos of 1998 from my Rosh Hashiva of Yochanan Zweig Shlita. It forever changed my understanding of what it means to sit in a sukkah. It had a profound impact on me, and I'm hoping that I'll give it over in a way that will have the same impact on all of you. Let's go through just some of the minhagim, very interesting minhagim that we have on Sukkos, and figure out what the underlying theme behind some of these minhagim are. Perhaps give us a new insight, as I said, to the yeshivas in the sukkah. We'll start with a list of questions before we create the yesod that perhaps we can circle back and answer these questions. The Ramah, at the end of Hilchas Yom Kippur, brings down from the Ma'aril twice. He mentions it at the end of the halachas of Yom Kippur, and then brings it again at the beginning of Hilchas Sukkah. The Ma'aril says that as soon as Yom Kippur is over, person should start building his sukkah. So the Ramah says like this. Ramah says, "Mitzvah l'sakein hasukkah miyad la'achar yom haKippurim. The mitzvah habo liyoda al tachmitzena." It's not actually the lashon of the. It's not actually the lashon of the Ma'aril. The Ma'aril says actually a person should go michayil el choyil, from strength to strength. It means you have to build on what you've accomplished Yom Kippur. Start building the sukkah right away. Then again, the Mishnah Berurah brings the Ramah mentions again at the. Sorry, that was at the beginning of Sukkah. At the end of Yom Kippur, he says, "Hamadaktik maschilin miyad b'moitzi Yom Kippurim b'asiyas hasukah kedei lotzeis b'mitzvah el mitzvah." That's he changed the lashon a little bit because the Ma'aril says michayil el choyel, he says mitzvah el mitzvah. So just a basic question: if the whole vort is that right after Yom Kippur, you should go into, from you finished Yom Kippur, do something positive. Like in Volozhin, they say there used to be a 15-minute Seder after Yom Kippur. Everybody's running off to eat, so the Netziv felt, it's important that you sit and learn. Okay? So then open up a sefer and learn. Why is it dafka building the sukkah? And if it's because there's an Indian of sukkahs, then why go buy a lulav and esrog? Yom Kippur is over, go buy a little bit. It's an Inyan specifically that's in the sukkah, clearly in the Mishnah Berurah. The Ramah feels important twice to mention this, that there's an Inyan building a sukkah. What is the connection, the direct connection between Yom Kippur and the building of the sukkah that the Ramah feels important enough to say? And more than that, the lashon of the Ma'aril is Michayil al Choyel, that the building of the sukkah is actually a step up. It takes you to the next level after what's been accomplished on Yom Kippur. The Shulchan Aruch brings down Ketzat mitzvahs yeshiva b'sukkah shia oichel v'shoyse. You have to eat and drink. So Ramah feels that that's not sufficient. You have to add. So he adds v'yoshein. You have to sleep. I understand that. But then he adds a fourth term. It's actually from the Tur. Umetayel. The Ramah feels important enough to know that the mitzvah of sukkah is eating, drinking, sleeping, and being matayel. What does matayel mean? I mean, matayel means we go for a walk and we take a pleasure walk. Sukkah has to be 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim to be yotze. So what we walk around the table. What does that mean? You can hardly stand up. What does it mean to be matayel? What's this lashon of being matayel in a sukkah? And the Ramah feels important enough. This is an essence of what sitting in a sukkah represents. The Mishnah Berurah says something it seems to be very uncharacteristic of the Mishnah Berurah. We know the Mishnah Berurah wrote, and he's called the Chavetz Chaim, Yisrael Meir Kohen Kagan, he's called the Chavetz Chaim, of his primary work that he wrote concerning the halachas of Lashon Hara. Miyash Chavetz Chaim, that's what's called Chavetz Chaim. The Mishnah Berurah is really its most brilliant piece of work. I mean, you go through, you see the Biur Halacha, you see the brilliance in the Mishnah Berurah, but it's a dry, it's halachas. It's halachas, there's lumdus in there, but it's not musar. No one learns Mishnah Berurah from musar. Mishnah Berurah brings down over here that you have to eat in the sukkah, and he says on Matayil, he brings down from, it's really, the Ber Hativ says it too, they said you have to be, even your sicha should be in the sukkah to fabreng. It means you should shmooze in the sukkah. And then the Mishnah Berurah brings down over here, I'm going to read the Lashon to you. Person should be careful, he says, Royal and Ma'ed Ba B'divrei Chol, right? So the Kol Shekain, she is Zoyer Meledaber Sham Lashon Hara. Person shouldn't speak Lashon Hara in the Sukkah. That was like a frumma thing. And outside the Sukkah, it's okay to speak Lashon Hara. What was he telling me? He has to tell me that in the Sukkah you can't speak Lashon Hara. And more than that, he just said, because we're sitting together, maybe, then by sitting at the Shabbos table, he should say, don't speak Lashon Hara. The Pesach Seder, don't speak Lashon Hara. No, in the Sukkah, he says, don't speak Lashon Hara. So what's the Inyan that he feels? And as I said, it's not a Musar Sefer. It's not a Fruma thing that he's saying. He's telling you part of the essence of sitting in the Sukkah is you have to be Zahir from Lashon Hara. Why is it, but part of the essence of not sitting in a Sukkah, you have to be Zahir from not speaking Lashon Hara. Medrash Tanchuma brings down, the famous Medrash Tanchuma, that each one of the Daled Minim represents a different type of Yid. Right? There's each one represents a different type of Yid. And so the esrog is the person that does, it's got tam and it's got reyach, it's mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim, Torah and ma'asim tovim, Torah and mitzvahs, and goes through, and then it says the lulav. What is the lulav? The lulav has tam, but it doesn't have reyach. Right? So it's tam doesn't have reyach, it's only Torah without Ma'asim Tovim. I think that's the lashon. It's the time of. So Rosh asked a very simple question. When Chazal say something, you have to take them at what they're saying. Right? They don't say, "Well, this is what they mean." If you ever say what is what they mean, then they mean what they say. When's the last time you took a bite out of a lulav? Right? You don't shake the dates; you shake the lulav. So why would you say that the lulav has tam? Simple. What is it? Just Chazal. You say Chazal. What does the Chazal mean? The lulav represents someone tam and not reyach. What's a tam? The tam is the dates. The dates aren't part of the lulav. The dates aren't. We don't shake that. So what's the pshat? Why is that considered to be that the lulav has tam? It's simple. Just understand Porsche pshat in the medrash. Another minhag which is very modern is ushpizin. Right? Every night we invite into the Sukkah, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, to bring the Minhagim, Yosef, the different, it's this Inyan, we start inviting people that have passed on into our Sukkah. Okay, Eliyahu Navi we say by, but he didn't die, right? So he's the one. But what is this Inyan that we have that we're inviting? What's this minhag of Ushpizin? We don't say it by this. Let's do it at Shabbos. Let's do it at the Seder. Why is there an Inyan of Ushpizin that we invite the manhigei of Klal Yisrael into our Sukkah? The decorations, the noise Sukkah is also difficult to understand. Right? The Mishnah says whether we hang up nuts and oil and we put fruit and if it's an Inyan of Teishvu Ke'ein Taduru. When's the last time you walked in someone's house and there's nuts swinging from the chandelier and there's oil swinging from the chandelier? And what's the Inyan that way? That's how we decorate. If it's supposed to make it, put it. Yeah, I heard in Borough Park they put chandeliers in the sukkah. I haven't seen it, but I'm saying, okay, then you understand. Put a chandelier in the sukkah, but have fruit and nuts and oil. Meheshi Tesi. Why should that be the way? And colored, make nice colors, and that's it should be a house motif. The way it's your dining room, not. That looks very strange. So what is the Inyan of Noi Sukkah? And there's halachas condemned. It's not just there's serious Inyan in Megabe. It's essential part of the Sukkah is the Noi Sukkah. So what is the Inyan that's the way we decorate our Sukkah? So let's just chazer over. We're asking so far the Maril, that Ramah brings him twice, that you have to go straight from Yom Kippur to Sukkos, to building the Sukkah specifically, not the Dalet Minim, not any other mitzvah, dafka, the building of the Sukkah. The Medrash Rabbah, the Lulav, tam? Why is it considered to have tam? Ushpizin, what's the inyan of Ushpizin? The noy sukkah, why do we decorate the sukkah in such a way? Also very interesting, we find, it's a little bit in Eruvin, but sukkah is the primary thing. We have halachas that are not real, imaginary halachas. Good asik, good achias, lovun. The wall almost goes there, you can consider it goes there. It almost goes, the schach doesn't cover completely, we consider it completely. Yiddishkeit deals with real things. We don't usually deal with things that are imaginary. I mean, so all of a sudden you have all these halachas that are involved concerning the sukkah that make belief. Let's assume it looks like this. And that makes it a kosher sukkah. It's 2 and a little bit of a wall, makes it like 3 walls. I mean, it's like, what's the inyan that we're not dealing with real things, like make believe things. What's the inyan sukkah? We find this more than anywhere else that we rely on. In Erev, you have it a little bit in the Shabbos. We'll see maybe that we can understand that too. But the very interesting thing that I haven't seen it in a long time, but I believe the Shalah says actually that it's not a b'di'evid. To rely on these things, he actually says it's considered to be a lechatchila, I believe. I got to remember that it's a lechatchila to rely, which is also, that's you want to be relying on these things, relying on the dolphin. I could make it look like, all these special halachas that apply to sukkah, the wall doesn't go all the way to the top. What is the inyan of all of these seem to be make-believe principles that are applying to make your sukkah kosher? I think one of the more difficult questions I think that we're going to have to address, and Rabbi Rosenberg spoke about it on the second day Yom Tov, I think you might be talking about it as well, but the inyan of the P'tur of mitztayer. That a person that's mitztayer is potem in a sukkah, someone that is uncomfortable. How exactly it works, many other Rishonim disagree with the Ramah's understanding of it, but many hold that mitztayer, if you have some discomfort, you're uncomfortable, flies, it's cold, you're potem in a sukkah. But not only you're potem in a sukkah, according to most Rishonim, it's a bracha of Atola to make a bracha. It's nikra hedyot. If you go into the sukkah when you're mitztayer, it's nikra hedyot, and hedyot is not a positive thing. I know there's certain groups of Yidden that actually hold that it's even if you're nikra hedyot, you'd rather be a hedyot in the sukkah than a hedyot out of the sukkah, but that's not the traditional mainstream. Nikra hedyot means you're not going to be in the sukkah, and it's a bracha of Atola to make a bracha in the sukkah. So the question, if it's tied to, Tosfos wants to say it's Rabbi's halacha, and it's Taras Potter, Tosfos learns it's tied to the inyan of Teshu Ke'ein Taduru. However you understand the mechanics from it, what is very difficult, it's connected most of the other mitzvahs and the principles that underline most mitzvahs. Most mitzvahs, we have in Pirkei Avos, it says, L'fum tzara agra. Right? The more effort and the more pain you put into the fulfillment of a mitzvah, the greater is the reward. All the time comes one mitzvah, it's the yach, there's no other mitzvah like that. That no, if there's any type of tsar, then forget, you're not Yotze. It's not that it should be more. Okay, fine, I'm willing to take the cold. And I should get more reward for doing it. No, forget, you're a hedyot, and it's a bracha levatala if you make a leisha b'sukkah under those circumstances. What's talking about shot? That all of a sudden you have this one mitzvah, that this concept of l'fum tzara agra, that the more effort, the more tsar that you have in the fulfillment should give you greater reward. And here it seems to be the exact opposite. You're not Yotze b'chlal, it's a bracha levatala. One last question. There is a fascinating Gemara in the beginning of Avodah Zarah that says that La'asid Lavai, Mashiach's already come, and everybody is now lining up to get their Olam Haba reward. What's my chelik in Gan Eden? Everybody wants to get their Olam Haba reward. So all the nations of the world push forward. They need to get everything they did was for the Yidden, and because of that, they want to get rewarded as well. And the Gemara goes there, Kadosh Baruch Hu says to them, Man Torah be'erev Shabbos, only if you put your effort in before Shabbos can you get the reward of Shabbos, and you guys didn't do what you needed to do. And it goes through Shach V'Vatari, and Kadosh Baruch Hu says to them, you know what? I'll give you one mitzvah. Let's see how you keep this mitzvah. He gives the nations of the world. What mitzvah does he give them? Sukkah. They go into the sukkah, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu brings out a heat, min ha'artika, from its sheath. The sun comes out of its sheath, and it shines down upon them. They become very uncomfortable. They go out and they kick down their sukkahs, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu laughs and says, you see, you can't get rewarded. And the Gemara says, well, is mitzvah is put them in a sukkah? He says, okay, but they don't have to kick down the sukkah. They don't. That's the Gemara talks about. Okay. What's talk of the pshat over there? If they don't deserve reward, then why are they giving them one more chance? What's the idea? And even if he's giving them a chance, why is the chance manifesting itself with the mitzvah of sukkah? Right? Let him put on tefillin. Let him put on it's mitzvah kala, fine. And the other mitzvah kalas that the Gemara identifies as the mitzvah kala. Why dafka sukkah? And then the idea of bringing out the sun, and then what's talk? What is the pshat over there? So I don't know the Maharal. There are people that say the pshat over there is an idea that you're bringing out the sun. There's an or haganuz. There is this light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put away at the beginning of creation. And that's going to be that's the light of La'asid Lavo. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give the tzaddikim their reward with. And if you look at the end of the Gemara, actually, I think Rav Wolbe says this, it's at the end of the Gemara brings down that Reish Lakish says that there is no such thing really as Gehenna. Gehenna, what is Gehenna? He says, the same experience that gives the tzaddikim their ultimate pleasure is the most uncomfortable experience for the Rishoyim. I think Rav Wolbe is like, somebody they tell him, you're going to be now in the Gemara shir for the rest, for eternity. Right? Some people are just looking at that clock and say, this is the worst thing that could happen. That's the most unbelievable experience of my life. But it's the same experience, but either you're ready for that experience or you're not ready for that experience. That's this or haganus that comes out, it's that tzaddikim, it's the ultimate pleasure, that the Kechavim, they can't deal with it. It's such an uncomfortable experience, they go out and they kick down their sukkah. I believe that's a machshava. So what's the pshat over there? So we have to see, why is it specifically this mitzvah that's been given to them? And what is this idea that we're bringing out the idea they can't get the reward because they didn't prepare themselves for that particular type of reward. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a history. Go through history a little bit and see if we can then come up with an explanation here to answer all of these questions. Kadosh Baruch Hu creates Adam HaRishon Erev Shabbos. So the Arizal brings down, it's brought down a number of different svarim, is that what was supposed to happen? He was supposed to pass the Nisoya and don't eat from the tree, and then he would evolve into Shabbos. Shabbos in Gan Eden, that would be the highest level. He was in Gan Eden, but it's a higher level. Whether it's Gan, whether it's Eden, it's a higher level. Past the Nisayan, and you're able to get to Shabbos. Shabbos would be the eternal existence of man basking in the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Gan Eden. That would have been the unbelievable experience. Comes along the Nachash, and Adam falls and gets kicked out of Gan Eden. 20 generations, they get back to a point where the Adam HaRishon Koydem Achet. At Har Sinai, the Gemara tells us that they reach that level again, where they can now make that leap. So what's supposed to happen? They get the Torah. And what's supposed to happen immediately after they get the Torah? What's the next level? To go to that higher Ki'ilu Gan Eden type of existence. Go from Har Sinai. Where are they supposed to go right away from Har Sinai? Into Eretz Yisrael. So getting the Torah, going into Eretz Yisrael would have been transcending to that higher level of Adam HaRishon Koydem Achet. Unfortunately, what happens? Chet HaEgel. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to destroy them, and they get one more chance. That chance they fix themselves up is when Yom Kippur. All right? Comes along Yom Kippur, and now they're ready. Make the trek back to Eretz Yisrael. Unfortunately, before they can transcend that next leap and go into Eretz Yisrael, what happens? The Chet of the Meraglim. And that tikkun, we still today are working on trying to get back to that level of the Chet of Meraglim, even though we went in and we did build the Beis HaMikdash, but it was It was tainted from that point, and it's what we're working on to be able to get. Now, the aside we're going to say is as follows. We see that the idea that we're working on is fixing ourselves up to get to that Adam Arishon Kodam HaChet, be without Chet, and be able to transcend to the next level. Transcend to the next level. By Adam was going into Shabbos at Gan Eden. By the Yidden in the Midbar was going into Eretz Yisrael, and then going into Eretz Yisrael after Yom Kippur. That was the idea. So the yesod is that really what happens, Sukkos comes right after Yom Kippur, is what we're trying to do over here. Everybody's building for themselves a sukkah. We're trying to build our own miniature Gan Eden. After you've had Yom Kippur, you're now creating, and hopefully we're without Chet, and we're doing on some level it's symbolic, but it's more than just symbolic because there is some level. We know that the calendar is cyclical, and therefore there's kochos. The Jewish calendar has in it, there's kochos that you can tap into. After Yom Kippur, after a person has received his kapara, and we're on a level of tahara, then we want to make that next level. We want to go into Gan Eden. That is the notion of building the sukkah. Let's go back and see if we can answer some of the questions now, if that is the yesod. So let's start with some of the easy ones. Ushpizin. Why is there no din ushpizin on any other yontiv? If you're in Gan Eden, who are your neighbors? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. You're inviting the neighbors. That's the pshat is. You're creating, you're showing, you're in Gan Eden, you're going out, and you're inviting. What is the motif of the sukkah? You're making it look like a garden. There's greenery, there's fruits, there's nuts. You're trying to create, that's what you're trying to make. You're trying to create this garden motif. That's what you're trying to do. The Gan Eden is what you're trying to create there. That is what you're trying to do. That is the Gan. That is what you're trying to do. You're trying to create this. This is what we're trying to do. The Ramah says to be matayil. You know where else we find the word matayil? Rashi brings it down. The lashon of tiyul, it's not just a pleasure trip. It's the experience of Gan Eden. That's what we find also in the Navi. I believe it was by Yeravam ben Nevat that HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I got to find the medrash, but he says, "Let's Aniva ben David tayil itchem b'Gan Eden." Also, the lashon tiyul in Chazal is always tied to an experience of Gan Eden. The Ramah says that's important. That's part of the yesod of what is needed for the experience of the sukkah, is that we have to feel that we're in this Gan Eden experience. That is why it is used in the lashon of tiyul. Tiyul is a lashon, a Gan Eden type experience. We also understand the Ramah. He's bringing down the Maril. Right after Yom Kippur, your focus needs to be, it's not just making the lulav, it's not, now you need to start building your Gan Eden. That's a chayil achol. You're going to the next level. You're going to the next level. That's why Sukkah is so important immediately after Yom Kippur, because we're going from that level, we're going to the next level, we're going to build our Sukkah. What else? We had other questions we asked. By the way, it's very interesting, is that according to one of the positions in the Gemara, we learn out the inyan of Sukkah from the Ananei HaKavod. The pasuk the Gemara brings down is Eid Yala Min Hagan. For the Ananei HaKavod, it's the vapors that came from Gan Eden is the sukkah that was created. That's the Gemara brings down over there. Eid Yala Min Haaretz. But it's talking about, that's the pasuk that's written by Adam Arishon, by Gan Eden. That's where it's written. That's the pasuk over there. Eid Yala Min Haaretz. But it's in Gan Eden. Okay, so Lashon Hara now is Pashut also. The first time we got kicked out of Gan Eden was the Nachash, the Baal HaLashon. The Chazal say it was a chet of Lashon Hara. He spoke whatever the Lashon Hara is, but that's why we got kicked out over there. The Meraglim, which is why we're still kicked out, is what's the chet? So says the Mishnah Berurah, the essential avera you have to be careful not to do inside a sukkah, it's not just a fruma thing, it's a mussar, is Lashon Hara. That's more important because Lashon Hara is the antithesis of the experience of Gan Eden. And mainly, you can't be in a sukkah and speak Lashon Hara. That's why you got kicked out the first time. That's why you can't speak Lashon Hara. The whole inyan of Gan Eden, what does Eden mean? It's pleasure. It has to be pleasurable. All other mitzvahs you can say lefum tzara agra. You can't say that by sukkah. Because if you have to create a Gan Eden experience, how can you be mitzvah? You can't be mitzvah in Eden. That's not Eden. Eden has to be that. You have to be a pleasurable existence. If it's not pleasurable, then you can't call that a Gan Eden experience. But mainly you can't have tsa'ar and still be mekayim what you're trying to accomplish within the sukkah. That's what you have. And I think that's also the pshat. Being Gan Eden means you're above time, you're above space. You're not controlled by the normal parameters of this world. And mainly you have all these imaginary halachas. These are all things, there's all time and space. These are all above. That's the whole Indian here. You're showing that you're aligned, that you're not bound by time. You're not bound by space. But maybe there's good asi, good achis, lavud, all these halachas. It's not imaginary. This is an above world experience. And that's also what happens over here with the Goyim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing them, it's not just his playing games with them. The Indian of, you want to get a taste of what Gan Eden, you want your Olam Haba experience. You want to get that. Sukkah is the mitzvah that gives us that feeling. He's telling them, I'm going to show you. This is showing them why they can't have that experience of Olam Haba. You prepared yourself for it, you can get the reward. You haven't prepared yourself for it. What's the raya? Sukkah is the raya. That's the one mitzvah we can do where we prepare yourself. You can have that sense of Eden. They cannot have the sense of Eden. This is showing them why they can't receive their reward from Olam Haba. They're not shaykh to it. It's not because it's a punishment. It's not a punishment. They're not shaykh to getting that. The experience of Sukkah is one that shows them that they couldn't get the reward for Olam Haba. They're not shy for that Olam Haba reward, because Sukkah that's the Gan Eden feeling that we can tap into, but they don't have any shaykhs to Bechlal. Therefore, that to them that they just leave the Sukkah and kick it down. They can't. That's not something they have any connection to. Let's go through. We had one more question, I believe, that we haven't answered. The Medrash Tanchuma. Yes, the Medrash Tanchuma. Why is the look in time? So take a look. It's unbelievable. Rashi brings down that the Maharal says this is actually where the source of Bechira comes from. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told the fruit trees should be 8 pri osa pri. That all the fruit trees should be, the tam of the tree should taste like the fruit. The ground sinned, whatever that means sin, and produced only a tree that produces fruit, but the actual essential part of the tree does not have a taste of fruit. And that's why the ground was punished when Adam sinned, because it's his bechira that comes from the ground that has the ability to go against the tzivah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Maharal. That's why man was able to choose to do something different than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He had to create that's in there. But the Chazal brings down is that la'asid lavo, when we've reached that tikkun, then it'll go back to 8 pri osa pri. The Arizal's machlokas in the poskim. The Arizal says, where do you bench lulav? You're supposed to bench lulav in the sukkah. Why are you supposed to bench lulav in the sukkah? Because we're saying it's very good. Because we're hoping that we're recreating a Gan Eden experience. Recreating a Gan Eden experience. You want the lulav in the sukkah. The lulav in the sukkah is at the highest level of Gan Eden. On that level, it's tam kapri. That the taste of the date is also the taste of the lulav itself. It has the same taste, because that's the tikkun of Gan Eden. That's it. So you're going into the lulav, to lulav, where you're benching your lulav. That's what Arizal says. Is that therefore you have this din of now you're tapping into the idea of tam kapri. When maybe tapping into tam kapri, the lulav has tam. The tam of the lulav is the tam of the date. So just to summarize again, so the idea basically is as follows: is the reason why we're building the sukkah right after sukkah, at least the understanding that we're saying is obviously it's a tzivoy, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us the opportunity after Yom Kippur, where we're masakin ourselves, to go to the next level, Mikhail al-Choyel, to create a Gan Eden experience for ourselves. On a miniature level, we're creating it. Vasid Lava, please God, it'll be the ultimate sukkah that we're all in there. It'll be the ultimate Gan Eden that we go to. But that's the idea we're creating for ourselves. When Mela comes out, Mitzvah, it's not a sukkah. You haven't created it. Sorry that you haven't created for yourself. There's no Inyan of Fum Tzara Agra over here. You're going Michael El Choyel, like the Maril says, and that's why you have to make sure right away. It's not other mitzvah, not lulav, not learning Torah. You have to start building your sukkah. You're moving towards that. There's no lashon hara in the sukkah. That's the antithesis of why of sitting in a sukkah. That's why we got kicked out. The Gemara and Avodah Zarah, the Goyim, are not shaykh to the idea of the schar of Olam Haba. They can't get it because they haven't fixed themselves up. The sign for that is they can't sit in a sukkah. They cannot get that pleasure of being in a sukkah because they were not masaking themselves for the ultimate pleasure of being in Gan Eden. The Ananei Kavod is what forms it, and we have the imaginary halacha, as we said, it's because you're beyond time, beyond space, we're in Gan Eden, and your shpizin is you're inviting people that are with you in Gan Eden, and that's why we invite the shpizin into our sukkah. Have a good night.